Hey folks, been a couple of weeks since I've made any videos. I've just been busy. We got a baby on the way and I've had some other stuff going on. And with a baby on the way, there's a lot of stuff to get ready for the baby directly, and then there's a lot of secondary stuff that's like, well, I got to get these things in order before the baby's here, 'cause I'm not going to have time for at least a few months when the baby first gets here. We're about a week away from weaning and hauling the kid crop to the sale barn. All the wethers and unretained doelings will be going to the sale barn. I have been contacted by a number of people asking about replacement doelings. I'm not going to have any replacement doelings for sale that I'll be selling as breeding stock for the next couple of years because we'll be growing our own numbers. So any doelings I would be selling are not things you would want anyway. But just to get that out of the way, what I wanted to talk about today was an evolution that you've already seen on this channel in my grazing system. And I've been doing rotational grazing basically my entire life. I grew up on a ranch doing this. And how I grew up doing it and how I was doing it up till, early spring or early summer last year was we had, permanent, air quotes, permanent subdivision fences, and we just rotated them through those subdivisions. On occasion, we would open a gate and combine two subdivisions and graze the same area and stuff like that. But most of the time, just one subdivision at a time. I put the word permanent cross fence in air quotes because you're talking about 2-strand 17 gauge smooth wire, not high tensile, with round posts and plastic insulators. That's not very permanent. It's very easy to move, very easy to remove compared to heavier duty fences. And it's so cheap that, if you just balled it up and throw it in the trash, it's not going to hurt you that much to do it. But it's still more permanent than, like what we're using now, which is, the 2-strand polywire with step-in posts everywhere for cross fencing. And, that smooth wire fence, you might be okay moving that once every few months or something, but you're not going to be moving that every week or every few days like we do with the polywire. And right now we graze, every stop we graze for about 3 to 5 days. It just kind of depends on how things work out. We kind of target 3 days, but we're willing to go up to 5. And I'll talk a little bit about why I changed my system here. And a lot of this comes out of the Nebraska Grazing Lands Coalition's grazing school that I went to last summer. And a lot of these things I knew already, but being able to kind of put all the pieces together in the right order, and also being able to test all the equipment and different types of equipment on hand and at the facility there, and really put all the pieces together, really kind of opened my eyes on a number of things, on a number of problems I didn't even realize I was having. With those fixed paddocks, you didn't have the option of adjusting space. You only had the option of adjusting time. If you think of rotational grazing as just the management of pasture load, space, and time, if you have fixed paddocks, you can only change pasture load, which is kind of inelastic anyway. Like, yeah, you can change it. You can destock, you can wean and sell early, you can stock up, things like that. You could take on custom cattle or whatever, but you can't, it's not that elastic. You can't change it on a fly like that. And if you're using fixed paddocks, you can't really adjust space very well if at all. Again, you can open gates and combine 2 paddocks, but even that's still pretty limited. Your only real lever that you could pull was time. So you would just stay on a paddock longer or stay on a paddock shorter. And it would end up with these weird scenarios where because that's the only lever that you have to pull, you'd end up inadvertently overgrazing sometimes or undergrazing, or end up in situations where you're feeling like you're having to leave stock on the same paddock too long. And especially with goats or sheep for that matter, you end up with parasite problems when you have that. And you're just not able to control. You're taking away a major lever, the space lever, when you have those fixed paddocks. So we switched to 2-strand poly braid with step-in posts, and I've been much happier with that. Yes, it is more work. It is definitely more labor intensive. Not that much though. You get the right equipment, you get the right reels and the right posts and everything, and it really simplifies the system and simplifies the process. And we do pasture estimates, so we figure out how many AUDs per acre are out there. We figure out how many days do we want to stay there, typically 3 again, and then we know how much space to give them. If you have a situation where, and this actually happened last summer, where I had the fixed paddocks and I was grazing through and there was a death in the family. And I had to go all the way to Illinois for 3 or 4 days. And we were on a situation there where I was having to get somebody to rotate the goats. I was really worried about running out of pasture. I wasn't necessarily going to be here. I had to ask them to, hey, keep an eye on things, and here's some square bale hay. If it looks like it's getting low, toss them some square bale hay and stuff. And it's just a lot of stress and a lot of anxiety in that system. And it was really stressful just getting away for 2 or 3 days. Now, if that situation comes up, I'd be like, okay, we're going to maybe move them early, move them off of a paddock early. I'm going to give them, if I got to be gone for a week, okay, we're going to measure out in animal unit days per acre how much space we need to give them for a week. I might even bump that up to like 8 days just to make sure there's extra. And I can leave for a week. I probably would still want to have somebody checking on water and checking on the electric fence and making sure it's staying hot and everything. But it gives me a lot more flexibility, both with actual grazing management, but also just with life management in general. Because again, this is not a full-time gig for me. I have a full-time job. I got kids. I got hobbies. I got stuff to do. And I've just been much, much happier with the rotational grazing system, using temporary fences and moving them every 3 days, and really being able to pull both levers, both the time and space levers, freely to accomplish my grazing goals, as well as make the grazing schedule and system better fit real life.